Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm hoping to welcome Tawny Cortes to chat to me a little bit about yoga, her journey to becoming a yoga teacher, how yoga works, and we're going to discuss a little bit about restorative yoga, which is one particular type of yoga that I've discovered very recently. And it's been really useful for me in helping me cope with eczema, topical steroid withdrawal and anxiety. It's just been a really lovely practice to discover, something that I didn't really think would work at first, but it was really useful for me at times when I couldn't do yoga without being so itchy. It was quite remarkable how I managed to relax even in the middle of really traumatic, dark topical steroid withdrawal places. So I'm just waiting for Tawny to come on. She should be here any minute now. And I've got a blog that I'm writing, which is about all different types of yoga that I love. So do check that out on my blog if you get the chance. You might be listening to this on my blog, or you might be watching it on YouTube, so hopefully you can find it. It's going to be really fun, because I think that mental health is a really important aspect for people with skin problems and anything which anxiety has an effect on, any condition which causes pain and discomfort. It can be really helpful to learn to sit with that pain, to learn to have discomfort and not be angry and fighting against it all the time. And it's very hard. I think you go through a period of anger and rage in the world, especially with topical steroid withdrawal, which is preventable. And it's easy to feel very cheated and wronged, and yeah, it's hard, but nobody could have foreseen that we would get addicted to this drug, which seemed to miraculously cure eczema. So Tawny is here in the waiting room. Let me just admit her. Hello, Tawny.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Try and get you on so you're next to me. That's better. I like it when the two are the same.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a lovely top.
Oh, thank you. Yes, this is from Mexico. My brother sent it to me a while ago.
Really
yeah.
pretty. I think we're
Very
all like
summery.
Yeah, normally in yoga gear when I see you.
I know. Yeah, it makes a change, doesn't it?
I love your hair as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's getting so long. I was like due to get it cut, I think, at the end of March, like just before the lockdown, and then yeah. But it's I have to put it up now when I teach because it just keeps falling in my face. But when I'm not teaching, then I'm like, okay, I can.
Yeah, maybe that's why it looks so long to me, because you've always had it up. So you're not brave enough to let your other half have a go.
Oh no,
scissors. No.
God, no, I wouldn't trust him. I'd rather wait and just keep my hair up and
With your kind of hairstyle, you can sort of get away with it, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, like it's it's just kind of a straight, blunt cut. So if it just grows long, it's not gonna, change shape or anything like that. So it's fine.
Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about yoga and from my perspective, how it's helped my skin, but I guess it could help any condition where anxiety and pain and discomfort are present. So first of all, just could you introduce yourself, tell us how you got into yoga, how long you've been doing it?
So my name's Tawny. I've been practicing yoga for maybe about 15 years now. I kind of discovered it when I was at university, and it was really, I kind of got into it in my final year of uni, which was sort of my master's year, and dealing with the stress of kind of completing my master's, doing my dissertation, and I was kind of going to the gym somewhat semi-regularly, and that was helping. But I discovered they had a yoga class. I'd heard lots of things about yoga, how it's really good to like help you relax and to kind of help manage stress, and that was definitely my experience at the time when I kind of first came across it. And yeah, I mean, nothing particularly stood out for me from that very first class at university. But I do remember at the very end, you know, when you come into final relaxation, you lie down. It's probably like the first time I've ever actually given myself permission to lie down and just do nothing. And even though it wasn't very long, it was maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes, it kind of really stuck with me. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this other than just, you know, the physical benefits of getting more flexible and building strength and stability and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I started. And I was, you know, doing yoga on and off. You know, I finished uni, I joined a gym, you know, local to me, and then found a yoga class that I could go to. But it wasn't something that I sort of dove straight into. It kind of, one of those things where you get really into it for like a few months, and then, you know, you get distracted by other things or something else takes your interest and you kind of drop it for a while. And then I'd come back to it and again would practice for a few months and kind of on and off like that for many years. And it wasn't until I was working in the fitness industry as a personal trainer and, you know, teaching other exercise classes that kind of yoga came back to me again, and was like, it was always this thing, this little seed in the back of my mind of, you know, something that I'd always really wanted to just learn more about, you know, for me personally, not necessarily to teach, but just that I had a keen interest. And Doreen, who you know,
Yeah.
which was my gym manager at the time, she gave me a really good piece of advice. This was very early on when I was just starting, you know, in the fitness industry. And she was kind of like, you know, you can be good at lots of things. You know, I was teaching lots of different styles of classes and kind of didn't really have any kind of specialism. But just kind of teaching lots of random classes. And then she said you could be really good at a lot of things, or you could be great at one thing. And that really stuck with me. And that was kind of the kick up the bum that I needed to then go and do my yoga training. And I just realized that that's where I want to focus my my expertise in. So yeah.
And how long ago was that?
That was almost 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I've been teaching, for 6 years. I started again, I was still working at the gym part-time. So I would teach maybe 1 or 2 classes, yoga classes a week. And then I eventually went to teaching full-time about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember you did that.
Yeah, that was scary.
A big step, isn't it? Leaving a full-time job and doing it on your own.
Yeah.
So,
but
I think we talked about what you did at uni. Was it drama or acting that you did?
Yeah, so I was studying drama and theatre studies at the time, and really that was kind of my focus. That was where you know I wanted to go into. I wanted to go into the theatre, whether it was performing or directing. Directing was something I was really interested in, but it's a really hard industry to get into. And as I was trying to get into that, I was like, I need something else to kind of get some income. And I ended up thinking, well, I can, if I'm, you know, performing, that's kind of a level of what you need to teach a class, you know, to be comfortable in front of people. I just thought, well, you know, I was going to lots of gym classes and I was thinking, I could probably do that if I learn, you know, about exercise a bit more. And that's how it all sort of transitioned for me.
You're certainly really good at yoga, aren't you? You know, when you're watching the teacher thinking, that's what it should look like. There's one posture we did in the class yesterday where you're leaning back with your hands back and you're supposed to, on your knees, and you're supposed to lift your body. I'd probably go up about that much. And your body is just like...
Oh, well, I mean, you should see, you know, more experienced teachers, they can get even higher than I can. But yeah, I think for me, it was just sharing the passion of why I, you know, love yoga and how much it's benefited me. And that's kind of where I approach it in terms of my teaching, is not having to reach this kind of ideal pose, but learning just how to be with your body and experience what you're feeling at that
Yeah,
time.
and what's normal for you. And I think that's why I love yoga, because you can do a yoga with all different ages, abilities, and people with different flexibilities and challenges can all have a go at yoga in the same
Absolutely.
room, in the same class, and not really feel like they're, you know, they're different, because there's, you just take it to whichever level you can go to.
Yeah.
So you were the first person to introduce me to restorative yoga, and I can remember when you first did a restorative yoga class. The other classes that I'd done of yours were like really intensive. I remember doing a 2.5 hour salute to the sun and a 2.5 hour hip classes, things like that, which was really hard work, really challenging for me. And then you did this restorative yoga class, and I didn't even know what it was. And it just kind of blew my mind, because I wasn't really that well then, and I was itchy and bandaged up, and I couldn't believe how calming it was for me. And I managed to, I'm getting a bit emotional thinking about it, go through that whole class without itching. And I think, I don't know if you noticed, but I was so emotional afterwards. I kind of walked out and I was crying, but not in a bad way. If you'd noticed, you might have thought, oh blimey, I've upset her. But I couldn't believe how the itch had gone, and it came back. But it was like, there's something in this. There's something that I need to do in my mind to try and just relax. And it's just the most incredible practice. So can you, waffling now, tell us a little bit about restorative yoga, how you discovered that, and how it works? Because it's just amazing.
Well, I'm so glad that, you know, that you've discovered
it.
it, and that you know, it's really been helping you. Yeah, I was kind of, you know, doing my yoga practice, and you know, what I teach is, I would say, hatha yoga, which is kind of the umbrella in which all the other variations of yoga then fall out from. And discovered restorative yoga through my own teacher. And again, it was that thing of from my very first class, when I lay down for final relaxation for Shavasana, that I had that little moment of just peace and of calm, that really kind of gravitated or caught my interest with the restorative. And yeah, the restorative yoga practice, if I just kind of give a brief description so that people know what that is, it's a style of yoga that uses props to support the body, whether that's bolsters, blankets, blocks, straps, to support the body in floor-based posture. So everything you do is going to be on the mat. So there's no downward dogs, there's no planks, and you're staying in each pose for several minutes, anywhere from maybe 5 up to 10, 15, even 20 minutes. And the idea is that we're trying to downshift the nervous system, coming into a more relaxed, grounded and centered state of being. And so it's a perfect antidote for, you know, our busy, you know, very fast-paced, stressful lives that we live, you know, especially under the circumstances that we're in right now. Probably everyone's kind of stress response is on overdrive. So we're in this kind of hyper arousal state. And when we're in that overdrive of alert, stress, you know, awake, kind of fight or flight response, the body forgets how to downshift, how to come into a relaxation response. And so restorative yoga is really helpful in encouraging us to slow down, to rest. And rest isn't just about sleep, although the restorative yoga practice can help to aid in sleep, but even just sitting with whatever's going on. So it can bring up emotional stuff, because, you know, we hold stress in our bodies in a physical way. You know, there's a physiological response that happens, but on a much deeper level, some of that stuff that we're holding on to can be linked to emotions, can be linked to memories or discomfort. And that part of slowing down, of letting go, of releasing, can also, you know, be a way of kind of working through some stuff as well.
I think for me as well, there was a lot to work through, and a lot of shame, and kind of lots of long held beliefs about my skin, and that journey that I was going through, which was tough. But it was also quite liberating to just do nothing, not quite nothing, but to be allowed to give yourself that time that is just purely for you. You're not stretching, you're not trying to be more flexible, you're not trying to build on strength, you're not trying to particularly meditate, although there is a little bit of that meditative state that you can get into. It's just purely indulgence for me, and just a really calming, like you say, centering. And I've never really done that, never in my life. Certainly not for, I've done, there's some 1 hour classes that you do, but the best classes are the 2 hour ones.
Yeah.
Who does that? Who just says, right, I'm going to just give myself 2 hours to enjoy relaxing my body?
Yeah, and a lot of it is, simply giving yourself permission. Permission is such a huge thing. And I think, I feel especially for women, we don't tend to, we're kind of taught to put ourselves last. We're the caregivers, we're the ones that have to be the strong, supportive type to support others, to hold the space for other people, whether it's our families, our loved ones, our spouses, our children. And so within all of that, all of those, hats that we're having to put on, and supporting all the, other aspects, whether it's people or home, work, whatever, we kind of then fall to the bottom of the list. And sometimes, when you first start doing restorative yoga, it can be quite challenging and quite confronting, because it is about allowing yourself to do nothing, which can be quite hard in and of itself.
I found myself quite fidgety at first, like couldn't relax. I didn't feel able to.
Yeah, and that is part of sitting with that discomfort. And that's where developing awareness really comes into the practice. It's coming into that sensory experience of, what am I feeling, what's going on in my mind, so being aware of the thoughts that come up without placing judgment. And that's the key thing there. Is we're so used to kind of criticizing and being very analytical about our thoughts and about our actions, and if we have free time, surely why would we even think about resting? Surely we should fill that time with busying ourselves with whatever it might be. And so it is a process. It doesn't just kind of happen. There's no on off switch for relaxation. It takes a gradual shift of moving from feeling like we need to do something, letting go of some of those patterns of holding, or letting go of some of those thoughts, and slowly but slowly, allowing ourselves to come into rest.
It's quite powerful, and I never really thought it would be quite that. I thought, it'd be quite relaxing, but there's so much more to it than that. I love it. We touched on meditation. I've done a few meditations with you as well, particularly on the yoga retreat that we did. What does meditation mean to you? It's something that I've discovered quite recently, and I didn't think it was for me, because this wrong belief that you had to empty your mind, and my mind just never stops, it's never empty. So I think that was my game changer for me, to realise that wasn't what meditation was about at all. But
it's funny, I also kind of thought the same. When I heard the word meditation, I kind of have this image of someone sitting in a cross-legged position, looking completely serene, maybe surrounded in nature, and like thinking no thoughts. And I was like, that's like impossible. And just like my yoga practice, my meditation practice has been a little bit on and off. I'll be really consistent with it for a few months, and I might drop it and come back to it. And so I haven't had I can't say, oh, I meditate every day. I wish I did. I wish but I'm human, and some days you just don't feel like it. But when I do meditate, and when I am able to be consistent with it, I do find that it actually helps me, almost like it's like a filing system for your thoughts. Like you allow yourself to sit with the thoughts, whatever they are. And again, it's non-judgment, so without sort of attaching any particular judgment to that thought, whether it's good, bad, you know, you're just observing. And part of that observing means learning to be comfortable to sit in that, whatever it might be. And then as you sit in that, you'll find that actually over time the thoughts pass. And maybe, you know, one thought goes and then there's a little gap of quiet and then another thought will inevitably come in, and then you sit with that and maybe it stays a little bit longer, maybe it just floats off pretty quick. And so it's just getting comfortable with sitting with yourself. And it's almost like a looking into the mirror, you know, it's seeing yourself, seeing your thoughts, good, bad, whatever, in between, not placing judgment, allowing it to be, and knowing that, and this was the key thing for me, I think, and it took me a while to get there, was that knowing that I'm not my thoughts, but I'm the awareness that's aware of the thoughts arising. And within that, that means that, you know, whatever I'm thinking, it's not really attached to me. It's just a thought, and it will come and it will go. And so, yeah, so, you know, when I do practice, I tend to sit for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So not very long, but enough to just be comfortable with sitting. Because again, that's the other thing, is sitting still. That's the challenge. It's not just, you know, watching the thoughts.
Yeah, for me, definitely. I'm like, don't touch my face, and then I'm trying not to.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and you want to fidget and twitch and move, and, you know, so, 10, 15 minutes is kind of like a really good window for me. You know, if you're a beginner, I would say maybe just 5 minutes. 5 minutes is enough.
I think when I first started doing it, 30 seconds is what I was doing, and I found even that, it seemed like a long time. So I'd never done that before, just to sit for 30 seconds. When you try for the first time, it's a long time. So you could just start with 30 seconds. And yeah,
just, you know, it doesn't have to be a set time. I think that's also, you know, I get caught up with my yoga practice of when I'm at home and I'm practicing for myself, I think, oh, it has to be an hour or it has to be this length. It doesn't, you know, there's no prescription, there's no right fit for everyone. It's you know, it's really bespoke, it's tailored to what feels right for you in that moment. And I think as well, acceptance. So when I'm meditating, sometimes I have a really bad meditation, and that's okay. I can accept that. If I'm really itchy or something, or if I'm just obsessed on one particular thought. But I sat down on the mat and I tried to do it, and I maybe got 10 seconds where I felt like I was actually being positive, but that's okay. It's about accepting where you are in the moment, and the fact that you tried to sit and do it, and the next time will probably be better, because nothing stays the same. These thoughts, like you say, are not my thoughts, and they change all the time. They come in, they go, and everything will pass. So we have a really bad day, it will pass. If you have a really itchy day, it will pass. Everything does. Yeah, and I would say, you know, there's no good or bad meditation. The fact that you sat down is a success in and of itself. So yeah, I think again, it's permission is a really big one, and judgment, non-judgment is also another big one for me. Yeah, and comparison, which I'm really bad at. I'm really bad at doing that. Yeah. Hate it. Because I tell myself I don't care, and then I'm looking at someone else, or they look like they're meditating better, or they're really much better at me at a certain posture. Doesn't matter. It's very hard to stop feeling like that, though, isn't it? Yeah, that, you know, that's part of sitting with the thoughts and acknowledging that's going to happen. You know, self-comparison. We're human. You know, we're all going to do that at some point. But the yoga practice really teaches you that it's about going inwards. It's not necessarily going out and looking at what everyone else is doing, but rather going in. Learning what's inside you.
The other thing that you often do in your classes, particularly the restorative ones, is read out some quotes. So I don't know if you've got one for us today, and also maybe I love that kind of thing. So have you got a good place where you go for the kind of quotes that I like to have one when I'm doing a meditation? I might just start with something like I'm going to think about during that session.
Yeah, mostly the quotes that I use, I've gotten from someone else, usually from my own teacher, or a friend has shared it with me and I've really liked it. But one person that I'm just like in love with at the moment is a lady called Dana Falls, and I've been reading a lot of her stuff. She's does a lot of poetry. Some of it is just generic, and some of it is actually about yoga. And if I could share one with you.
Yeah. How do you spell her name?
Dana, Danna. In fact, I've got her book here. Fauld, Fauld. So this is her book of poems.
Oh right, okay. Oh, I love poetry.
Yeah, and I actually just got this for my birthday. That was like my birthday present. I was like, I really want this book. And she's got 2 books like this, but if you can Google her and you'll find a lot of her stuff online as well. So you don't necessarily need the book. I just like I've got loads of tabs here of all my favorite poems, so it's easy for me to refer back to. But let me find the one that I'm really liking at the moment. So this is one of hers. Settle in the here and now. Reach down into the center where the world is not spinning and drink this holy peace. Feel relief flood into every cell. Nothing to do, nothing to be, but what you are already. Nothing to receive, but what flows effortlessly from mystery into form. Nothing to run to or run from. Just this breath. Awareness, knowing itself as embodiment. Just this breath. Awareness, waking up to truth.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I actually really, you should do some sort of audio thing that I could play to get me to relax. So I could find my eyes closed and my shoulders went down. That was lovely, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I found it really weird with yoga over the years because I discovered it fairly early on in life, but it was really hard to find yoga classes. I think it has got more popular now. Almost now I've got a choice of places like this, YouTube, yoga, and everyone's on Zoom now.
Yeah, definitely. I think yoga in the last I feel like maybe the last 20 years, it's really just boomed.
Yeah.
The yoga industry. And now that, everyone's on lockdown, so studios are closed at the moment, but everyone's now gone online. So there's so much out there. And what's nice about that is that there's so much choice. It can be a little bit overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
And even for me, when I was first starting to do yoga, it took me a while to find a teacher that I really kind of gravitated towards. And I think there are those teachers that you just know that that's the one for you.
Yeah.
And you stay with them for years. And that's not to say that you don't venture out and experience new teachers or new styles of yoga or new styles of, new ways of meditating or whatever it might be. But I think it's, like the people that you choose to keep in your life. There are certain people that you just there's that energy, that there's that shift that draws you to them. And I find that that's very true for me in terms of my yoga practice and who I practice with.
Yeah. You're right. It just made me remember something, and this isn't something we discussed before the call, but I know you went on a silent retreat, and this really something that interests me. I'd like to try and do it one day.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really hard, but tell us how does that work? Because you're not allowed to speak at all, are you?
Yeah. Okay. So I had, I'd known about silent retreats for a while, and I was kind of late to the game to actually even go on my first yoga retreat. You know, they're not necessarily the most affordable, depending on where you go. A lot of retreats tend to happen overseas, so then obviously there's travel costs involved, but I had a friend of mine had gone on this silent retreat with this particular teacher who I had known, who I was aware of, and I liked her style. So that was also really important for me. It was, again, you know, when you're on a retreat, you're in a space that, you know, isn't your own home. You're staying there overnight, and you do want to feel like the person that's leading is going to be holding the space for everyone and is going to be welcoming to everyone. And I think it's really important that you do choose a teacher that you know, that you've practiced with before. I mean, I do know of people that have just, you know, picked a random retreat and then they've gone away and had a great time. But I think for me, I was like really conscious that I wanted to go with somebody that I knew. Especially going silent was something that I was really apprehensive about. I kind of don't even know why. I thought maybe I liked the challenge. I don't really know what it was about it, that, but I just thought, okay, I want to give this a go. And I ended up going to Devon, so not very far, but stayed in this beautiful place called Sharpham House. And, you know, this wasn't a strict silent retreat. I will say that it, you know, the teacher kind of left it up to you as to how much you wanted to take that on board. I think I went knowing that I didn't know anybody, because I didn't want to go with a friend, because I knew, I was like, if I go with a friend, I'm
yeah
I'm gonna
be not with Gabby.
Yeah, I'm not going to be silent. So I specifically went by myself, didn't want to know anybody. And you know, I think some people in that group were friends, and so maybe they weren't as silent as I had been. But you know, we were encouraged to turn our phones off, no technology, you know, not even to
have to give it back when you went in, didn't have to hand your phone in.
Yeah, well, they didn't take our phones, but it was our responsibility to switch phones off. And so I basically sent a message to, you know, all the important people saying, I'm going to be away for X amount. I'm not going to have any contact, no phone. And, you know, there are some like health and safety issues. They do give you the phone number of the venue in case of anything, if you do need to get, you know, someone needs to get hold of you for an emergency, whatever. But yeah, as soon as you arrive, phone goes off. You know, there aren't any TVs in the space. You know, there's no technology around you. You're in your room. You practice yoga in silence. The teacher obviously talks. You eat in silence, and even in your free time, so there's some free time between the yoga practices, you're in silence.
And you had to read or take books or anything?
Yes, so you could take books, although, you know, they even said maybe you don't bring a book and you just, you know, you sit with yourself, which I was like, no, I need to take a book. So I took a book.
Yeah.
But I was also conscious to take a book with me that was going to help me, you know, that wasn't a distraction. It wasn't like fiction or, you know, some kind of fantasy or whatever. I think I took a yoga book that I really wanted to read anyway. So it's something that was going to actually help enhance my experience rather than use it as a distraction. And yeah, I did 5 days. And let me tell you,
5 days. I thought you went for one day.
No. So I've done 2. The first one was 5 days. The second one was, I think, like 3.5 days. But the first one was 5 days. The first 2 days were bliss. It was so nice not to have to make small talk and not to, you know, I feel like these things come to you at the right time. And at the time, you know, I did my first one last year in July. At the time, I was really tired. I was, you know, in the process of moving in with my partner, which was like a huge step for me, you know, first time living with, you know, significant other. And work was really crazy. And I just kind of was feeling a bit burnt out and run down. And so to go there and not have to talk, you know, I'm talking a lot of times because I'm teaching. So to not have to talk for the first 2 days was just so nice. It was so nice. It was bliss. And then you get to about day 3. And day 3, I was like, okay, you know, this feels a little strange, you know, sitting around a lot of people, eating your meals in silence, but you kind of get used to it. By day 4, I was like, yeah, you know, I slightly itching to maybe have some semblance of communication. But then by that point, you're like, well, I'm almost there. Like, you know, I can, you know, I can hang in there for another day. And by the end of it, it was like, it felt really strange to then start talking again. Like the final night, so the last meal, the final meal before you leave, you're able to speak. So then everyone's able to kind of like get to know one another and chat, but it's like the last day. But it felt really strange to all of a sudden like hear all this noise. It's amazing how your hearing just like really intensifies when you're in silence. And I mean, I was in such a beautiful place in Totnes in Devon, where all you could hear was like birds chirping and like the breeze through the trees. Like there was no street noise, no traffic. And so all of a sudden you hear all these voices speaking. It was like, oh, it's like a shock to the system. But yeah, it was really good. I think it's very challenging. It does bring up a lot of stuff, so a lot of emotional stuff for me personally, but it was at the right time for me as well. It kind of helped me clear through a lot of things, let go of a lot of things. Yeah, so I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, it intrigues me to know, just to see whether I could do that.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 final questions for you. One of them is, what's your next challenge? I don't know what you can do to top silent retreat. And then the final question is about anyone wanting to get into yoga, what tips you give them, and yeah, whether you think online yoga is going to continue. So you could get more people doing yoga, couldn't you? If you could have a class in the studio and on Zoom as well. But there's health and safety issues there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, what's next for me, I think, is still just learning to navigate this online world. I never thought that I would be the one to kind of go online, or even, you know, the thought of me being on camera was like a bit scary, if I'm honest.
I know, it's really tricky, because I was thinking about this. I've noticed that you've come back from social media as well recently and taken more of a kind of, you know, moving out those distractions, and now you're having to get that technology right back in there. And
yeah, and yeah, and also, you know, there's that imposter syndrome part of me that's like, oh my gosh, that everyone, you know, everyone and their mother is online now teaching yoga. You know, what do I have to offer? What you know, what makes me different from everyone else? And yeah, and having to be more active on social media. You know, I try and find a balance for me, because sometimes it can really like trigger my anxiety, if I'm quite honest, the social media and the speed of how much, you know, we're bombarded with new information. It's the next thing, you know, the new thing, this new class, this new workshop, this new retreat, you know. So I try not to, again, compare.
I actually think you're right, there's too much on social media, and I'm less likely to pick up on stuff on there because it is so quick, and then there's the next thing coming. I think that emails work really well. So you send out your emails. Obviously, you're only communicating with people you already know. But I'll act on that. I'll see that and I'll act on it and I'll book a class. Whereas if I see you on social media, I'll think, oh, I must do it, but I don't do it. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful, and I'm quite fortunate that I have been able to, you know, over the 6 years that I've been, you know, teaching yoga, build a sort of a mailing list, and so I can just email people directly. And I think I'd like to think that I've built relationships with people individually as well, you know, that students do get to know me and I get to know them. And so I feel quite comforted in communicating with people that I already know and I'm familiar with. I think it's the outside world of, you know, trying to draw, you know, maybe new students, that's a little intimidating for me.
Yeah. And I think drawing back the oldest pupils, because I obviously met you when I was working where you were doing the classes where I worked, and I'm not working there anymore. So for me, having you online on different days of the week, I used to see you did classes in different places where I didn't live and think, oh, I can't go to that class. I can now.
Yeah.
I can just book on any class. So it's quite exciting, really. It opens opportunities for the pupil, the yoga for the pupil.
Yeah, and it's great because it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can practice at home, in the comfort of your own home. And there is something really nice about that, actually, and something very nice for me as well. It's that, you know, I have the privilege of being invited into people's homes to practice with them, which is really lovely. Even though we can't be together physically, that this new online connection is really important right now. And I think it's going to stay. You know, I think even as, you know, we navigate coming out of this lockdown, I feel like there's going to be a lot more online offerings, as well as, you know, going back to physical classes. But I think that this will stay for a while.
I hope so, because I think there's a place for both. I like the going to the class, and also when we do group stuff where you can do something with a partner, obviously you can't do that on a class, and that does, and just the chatting, which you can't really do. There's a bit at the beginning where you will go hi,
yeah,
but you can't actually have a chat with your other classmates. But there's hopefully definitely a place to continue the online even when the studio classes come back, hopefully.
Yeah, I will definitely will keep on, you know, some of my online classes, even after, you know, everything goes, you know, opens up again.
Well, I think that was all my questions, really. So thank you so much for joining me. That's really, really interesting, and I hope it helps other people reading my blog. I've got a blog coming out soon where I'm looking also at yin yoga, which is a type of yoga that I have found really useful. Just that, taking it to another level of sitting in discomfort and just staying there, not pain, but that's really challenged me. And it has also taught me about the whole itch scratch cycle, like, so that, and also the somatic movement, which isn't technically yoga, but kind of just doing whatever you feel like doing in the moment. So
yeah, well, I would say, you know, any activity that allows you to connect with your body in a, you know, sensory way, it doesn't have to always, you know, I think it's very easy to get caught up with what a pose should look like, and oh, this is yoga, this isn't. You know, I do talk about in my classes about taking yoga off the mat. It doesn't have to be on the yoga mat. You know, your yoga could be reading a book that inspires you, reading poetry, you know, finding inspirational quotes, or sitting in meditation, or actually going for a walk in nature. That is your way to connect. Yeah.
I actually went and stood in the woods the other day and did a tree pose in the woods, and that was amazing. Just so beautiful, the countryside that we're all discovering around us. I don't know if you've done that, like found footpaths and never knew was there. And
yeah, I mean, I'm discovering that, you know, there are a lot more green spaces near me than I ever was aware of before. So yeah, it's definitely nice to just kind of go for a wander and discover what's nearby.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the next class, and I'm looking forward to the reading classes coming back, but I don't know when that's going to be yet.
Yeah.
Maybe October, do you think? Or maybe sooner?
I kind of feel like it's still too early to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll you know, give it a few more months, I think.
Maybe an outdoor class, a distanced outdoor class. I can picture us doing that.
I know, yeah, I would love to do outdoor, you know, yoga. I think now's the perfect time for it as well. But we have to see what you know, government guidelines give us.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. It's been really interesting. So thank you, and
pleasure.
see you soon.
Yes, take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.